There are moments in history when the veil between the present and the future seems paper-thin. Moments when the words of mystics, spoken decades ago, suddenly come alive with terrifying clarity. And right now, as we approach the closing days of 2025, one such prophecy is unfolding before our very eyes. A prophecy spoken by a man who bore the wounds of Christ himself, a man whose visions shook the foundations of the Vatican, Father Pio of Predicted. And what he saw concerning a powerful leader in the final days may change everything you thought you knew about the world we're living in. What if I told you that a humble Italian monk, who died in 1968, spoke of a blonde-haired leader who would rise in the Western world during times of great confusion? What if I told you that this same mystic, whose stigmata bled for 50 years, warned of tribulations that would begin when this leader faced his greatest challenge, the year 2025, the name whispered in corridors of power and fear, Donald Trump, and the prophecy is already manifesting. But before we go deeper, you need to understand who Father Pio really was. This wasn't just another religious figure making vague predictions. This was a man who could read souls, a man who bilocated, appearing in two places at once, a man whose confessional drew millions because they knew he could see into their hearts. The Catholic Church investigated him for decades, suspicious of his gifts, terrified of his power, and yet they could never deny what thousands witnessed with their own eyes. The stigmata appeared on his hands, feet, and side in 1918. For half a century, they bled. Medical examinations found no explanation. The wounds never became infected, never healed, defying every natural law. And through those wounds, Father Pio said he experienced visions, visions of the future, visions of world leaders, visions of a time when humanity would stand at the edge of an abyss. In the 1960s, during the height of the Cold War, when the world trembled under the shadow of nuclear annihilation, Father Pio spoke to a small group of trusted followers. He spoke of America. He spoke of a man who would come much later, a leader unlike any before him, not a traditional politician, not a military general, but a businessman, a showman, someone the world would both love and despise in equal measure. The monk's words were cryptic, as prophecies often are. He spoke of a golden tower, of a man surrounded by gold, whose name would become synonymous with wealth and controversy. He spoke of this man rising to the highest office, not once, but returning after a time of exile. And here's where it gets chilling. Father Pio said this leader's second rise would coincide with the beginning of the Great Trial, a trial not just for America, but for the entire world. Now, fast forward to today, November 2025, Donald Trump has returned to the political arena with a force that has stunned analysts across the globe. After years of legal battles, investigations, and what his supporters call persecution, he has emerged, not weakened, but galvanized. The polls show numbers that seem impossible. The rallies draw crowds that dwarf anything seen in recent American history, and those who oppose him seem gripped by a fear they cannot articulate. But this isn't about politics. This is about something far deeper, something Father Pio saw through the lens of eternity. Because the monk didn't just predict a leader's return, he predicted what would follow, and what he described sounds exactly like the chaos we're witnessing right now. Father Pio spoke of a time when the earth itself would rebel, when natural disasters would multiply, when the weather would become erratic, unpredictable, as if nature had lost its rhythm. In the past year alone, we've seen unprecedented hurricanes, floods that have swallowed entire towns, wildfires that burn with an intensity never recorded before. Scientists scramble for explanations, blaming climate patterns and human interference. But what if there's more to it? What if the earth is responding to something spiritual? The mystic also warned of division, not the normal political division that comes and goes with election cycles, but a division so deep it would tear families apart, turn neighbor against neighbor, make brother despise brother. Look around you. Can you honestly say we're not living through exactly that? The polarization in America has reached levels that historians compare to the years before the Civil War. People no longer disagree. They hate. They dehumanize. They see the other side not as fellow citizens, but as enemies to be destroyed. And Father Pio said this division would be sharpest around the figure of the returning leader, that this man would be a catalyst, a lightning rod for all the hidden tensions in society, that his very presence would force people to choose sides, to reveal their true natures. That neutrality would become impossible. You're seeing this happen in real time, aren't you? The mere mention of Trump's name can turn a peaceful dinner into a battlefield. Friendships of decades dissolve over political disagreements. Families stop speaking to each other. But here's what the prophecy says happens next, and this is where your breath should catch in your throat. Father Pio warned that during the second rise of this leader, there would be an attempt on his life. Not just one attempt, but multiple conspiracies, some visible, some hidden in shadows, and that the fate of this leader would determine the fate of millions. Already, we've seen the security around Trump intensified to levels previously reserved only for wartime presidents. Multiple threats have been intercepted, though the media barely covers them. Intelligence agencies speak in whispers about plots they cannot fully disclose. The Secret Service has tripled his protective detail. Why? What do they know that we don't? Father Pio's prophecy contains a crucial detail that cannot be ignored. He said that if this leader survives the attempts against him, it will be seen as a sign that a greater plan is in motion, that divine intervention is protecting him for a specific purpose. But if he falls, the prophecy warns, what follows will be catastrophic, a power vacuum that will plunge not just America, but the entire Western world into darkness. The monk described visions of cities burning, not from war in the traditional sense, but from internal collapse, riots that would make previous civil unrest look like minor disturbances. He saw martial law declared. He saw the military in the streets, not to protect against foreign enemies, but to keep citizens from destroying each other. And at the center of it all, the question of the leader, his survival or his fall, triggering everything. Now, you might be asking yourself, how could a monk who died before Trump was even famous know any of this? How could someone in rural Italy, who barely followed international politics, speak with such specificity about events decades in the future? This is the mystery of authentic prophecy. It doesn't come from analysis or guesswork. It comes from somewhere beyond time itself. Father Pio once told a visitor that he could see events as if they were happening simultaneously. Past, present, and future existed in his visions as one continuous stream. He said the souls of those not yet born would sometimes visit him in his cell at night, seeking his prayers. He claimed to have had conversations with people who wouldn't exist for generations. The church documented these statements. They investigated them, and they found no evidence of fraud or mental illness. What else did the prophecy reveal? Father Pio spoke of a great deception. He said that in the end times, the most dangerous lies would not come from obvious enemies, but from trusted institutions, that people would be led astray by those they were taught to respect. Leaders of churches, media figures, scientists, educators, all speaking with authority, all leading the masses toward destruction. Does this sound familiar? In 2025, trust in institutions has collapsed. Surveys show that confidence in government, media, scientific establishments, and even religious organizations has reached all-time lows. People no longer know whom to believe. Every statement is questioned. Every expert is suspected of hidden motives. The very concept of objective truth seems to have dissolved, and Father Pio said this confusion would be deliberate, that forces beyond human comprehension would orchestrate this chaos to prepare the ground for what comes next. He spoke of a figure he called the Great Deceiver, someone who would appear to offer solutions, who would seem to unite people, who would promise peace and security. But underneath, this figure would be leading humanity toward its darkest hour. Now, many have speculated about who this deceiver might be. Some point to global leaders, to tech billionaires who control information, to shadowy figures in international organizations. But Father Pio's warning was more subtle. He said the deceiver would not necessarily be one person, but could be a spirit, an ideology, a movement that takes on many faces, that it would appeal to humanity's deepest desires while corrupting their souls. The prophecy becomes even more specific about timing. Father Pio indicated that the events would accelerate after the leaders returned to power, that within months, not years, the world would see signs that could not be denied, signs in the heavens, signs on the earth, signs in human behavior, and that those with eyes to see would recognize the season we've entered. Let's look at what's happening right now. In the skies, we're seeing phenomena that astronomers struggle to explain. Unusual auroras at latitudes where they've never appeared before. Meteor showers with patterns that don't match known cycles. Reports of lights and objects that defy conventional explanation, dismissed by authorities, but witnessed by thousands. Are these the signs Father Pio spoke of? On the Earth, the frequency of earthquakes has increased in regions previously stable. Volcanic activity is rising across multiple continents. Ocean temperatures are fluctuating in ways that disrupt marine life and weather systems. Scientists present data, but their models keep failing to predict what happens next. It's as if the planet itself is entering an unstable phase, and human behavior, the surge in mental health crises, the epidemic of anxiety and depression, the breakdown of social cohesion. People report feeling a sense of dread they cannot explain, a heaviness in the air, a knowing that something fundamental has shifted, even if they can't articulate what. Father Pio said this would happen, that humanity would feel the approach of the great trial in their bones, before their minds could comprehend it. The prophecy also touches on technology. Remember, this is a monk speaking in the 1960s, long before the internet, before smartphones, before artificial intelligence. Yet Father Pio warned about machines that would think, about a time when human creation would begin to replace human connection, when people would communicate without truly speaking, when they would know everything yet understand nothing. In 2025, we're living in that reality, aren't we? Artificial intelligence has advanced to a point where it can create art, write text, make decisions that affect millions. We interact more with screens than with flesh and blood humans. Children grow up in virtual worlds, their sense of reality shaped by algorithms designed to addict and control. And Father Pio said, this technology would be one of the tools used to bring about the great deception. But here's something the prophecy reveals that most people don't know. Father Pio also spoke of a remnant, a group of people who would see through the deception, not because they were smarter or better educated, but because they maintained what he called simplicity of heart. These people would be ridiculed, marginalized, called conspiracy theorists and fanatics, but they would hold the line. They would preserve truth when everything around them crumbled into lies. Are you part of that remnant? Can you feel in your gut that the official narratives don't add up? That the world you were promised isn't the world you're living in? That something profound and terrifying is unfolding beneath the surface of daily news cycles? Father Pio said those who feel this dissonance are being called to wake up, to prepare, to resist the tide of deception. Now, let's return to Donald Trump and the specific elements of the prophecy. Father Pio described the leader as someone who would be hated by the powerful, not just opposed, but viscerally hated with an intensity that reveals something supernatural. He said the establishment would use every tool at their disposal to destroy this man. Legal systems, media campaigns, economic pressure, social ostracism, that they would break their own rules to bring him down. We've watched this play out in unprecedented ways. Investigations that led nowhere, impeachments based on contested evidence, criminal charges in multiple jurisdictions, many of which legal scholars across the political spectrum have called questionable. The coordination between different power centers, government agencies, media conglomerates, tech platforms, international organizations, all aligned against one individual. Father Pio said this level of opposition would be a mark of the prophesied leader, but he also said the leader would survive. That despite everything thrown at him, he would endure. Each attack would seem like it should be fatal, and yet he would emerge intact. His supporters would see this as miraculous. His opponents would become increasingly desperate, their hatred turning into something almost demonic in its intensity. And the more they tried to destroy him, the stronger he would become. The prophecy warns of a specific danger point, a moment when the forces arrayed against the leader would make their final move, a coordinated assault using multiple vectors simultaneously, legal, political, and possibly physical. Father Pio said this moment would come when the leader was at the height of his power, when he seemed untouchable, because that's when his enemies would be most desperate. Are we approaching that moment now? As Trump consolidates his return to political dominance, as his poll numbers surge beyond what anyone predicted, as his movement grows into something that transcends traditional party politics, are we nearing the flashpoint Father Pio foresaw? The tension in the air suggests we might be. The rhetoric has escalated to levels that even seasoned political observers find alarming. Terms like existential, threat, and threat to democracy are thrown around with a seriousness that implies extreme measures might be justified. Father Pio's prophecy includes a warning about what happens if the leader falls. He spoke of a darkness descending upon America and spreading across the world, a darkness not just political, but spiritual. He described it as a moment when evil would seem to triumph completely, when hope would die in the hearts of millions, when chaos would reign unchecked. The vision included specifics. He saw major cities paralyzed, supply chains collapsing, food shortages, energy crises, not because of natural disasters alone, but because of deliberate sabotage and the breakdown of social order. He saw neighbor turning against neighbor over basic resources. He saw the rule of law dissolving as people realized authorities could no longer protect them. And in the midst of this chaos, Father Pio saw the rise of what he called false saviors, leaders who would emerge promising to restore order, to fix the broken systems, to unite the divided nation. But these leaders, he warned, would be worse than what came before. They would offer solutions that required surrendering freedom. They would demand allegiance in exchange for security. They would use the crisis to consolidate power in ways that would make recovery impossible. But the prophecy also contains hope. Father Pio said that if the leader survives, if divine protection proves stronger than human malice, then a different path opens. Not an easy path, not a path without suffering, but a path that leads through the darkness rather than into it. He spoke of a purification, a time when everything false would be burned away, when humanity would be forced to confront its own corruption and choose renewal. This purification, according to the monk's visions, would be painful. Old systems would have to collapse to make room for something new. Comfortable lies would be stripped away, leaving people exposed to uncomfortable truths. But through this process, those who endured would emerge stronger, wiser, more connected to what truly matters. The prophecy suggests that the leader himself would be transformed by his trials, that the persecution he endured would refine him, would strip away ego and leave something purer. Father Pio said this leader would come to understand that he was not acting by his own will alone, but as an instrument of a greater purpose, and that this understanding would give him the strength to do what needed to be done, regardless of personal cost. What needed to be done. The prophecy speaks of exposures, of bringing hidden things into the light, of revealing the true nature of institutions people trusted, of naming the powers that have operated in shadows for generations. Father Pio said the leader would become a catalyst for the greatest disclosure in human history, that through his actions, willingly or unwillingly, secrets would spill into the open. We're already seeing hints of this. Information that was once classified as being leaked. Whistleblowers are coming forward despite risks to their lives and careers. Alternative media platforms are bypassing traditional gatekeepers to share stories that would have been suppressed just a few years ago. The control over narrative that powerful interests once took for granted is slipping, and Father Pio said this loss of control would drive them to desperate measures. The prophecy warns of a false flag event, an incident designed to shock the population into compliance, to justify extreme measures, to shift public opinion decisively against the leader and his movement. Father Pio couldn't describe it in modern terms, but he spoke of a great tragedy that would be blamed on the wrong people, an event that would be used as an excuse for actions that would otherwise be unthinkable. Are you paying attention to the patterns, to the way certain stories dominate news cycles while others disappear, to the timing of crises and how they always seem to benefit certain agendas? Father Pio said the remnant would need to be discerning, to question everything, to trust their God-given intuition over the voices of authority, because in the time of great deception, truth would often come from unexpected sources. The monk also spoke about the role of prayer in these events. He emphasized that nothing was completely fixed, that the future could still be influenced by the spiritual warfare being waged in unseen dimensions. He said that every prayer, every act of faith, every choice for good over evil would tip the scales, that humanity was not passive in its own fate, but an active participant in determining the outcome. This might sound abstract, but Father Pio was intensely practical about it. He told people to pray the rosary, to fast, to make sacrifices, not as religious rituals empty of meaning, but as actual weapons in a real battle. He said that the forces of darkness feared nothing more than the prayers of ordinary people who truly believed, that a single mother praying in her kitchen had more power than armies, if her heart was pure, and he warned that the enemy knew this too, that there would be a concerted effort to make people too busy, too distracted, too cynical to pray, that entertainment, addiction, despair, and false sophistication would all be used to keep people from accessing their spiritual power. Look at modern life. How hard is it to find even 10 minutes of quiet? How much effort does it take to disconnect from the constant stream of information and just be still? Father Pio said this was not accidental. The prophecy returns again and again to the theme of choice. Father Pio insisted that free will remained intact, even in the darkest times, that every person would face moments when they had to decide truth or comfort, courage or safety, faith or cynicism, and that these individual choices, multiplied across millions of souls, would determine whether humanity passed through the refining fire or was consumed by it. He spoke of a 3-day darkness. This is one of the most mysterious and frightening elements of his prophecies, a period when the sun itself would seem to fail, when an unnatural darkness would cover the earth. He said that during these 3 days, people should stay indoors, keep blessed candles lit, pray constantly, and under no circumstances open their doors or windows, no matter what they heard outside. Many dismissed this as medieval superstition, but Father Pio spoke of it in the 1960s, in the modern era, with absolute conviction. He said it would be a time of purification, when demonic forces would be given temporary reign over the physical world, that terrible things would happen to those who were caught outside, or who gave in to curiosity or fear and opened their homes, but that those who trusted and obeyed would be protected. Is this literal, symbolic, a combination of both? The prophecy doesn't clarify. What it does emphasize is preparedness, not just physical preparedness with food and supplies, though Father Pio did recommend having blessed candles and holy water, but spiritual preparedness, being in a state of grace, having confessed sins and reconciled with God, having forgiven those who wronged you, having released hatred and fear, because he said that during the trial, your internal state would determine your experience more than your external circumstances. That 2 people could go through the same events, but one would be destroyed while the other would be transformed, based entirely on what was in their hearts. That the purification would be tailored to each soul, giving everyone exactly what they needed for their salvation, even if it came disguised as catastrophe. Now, we're approaching the end of 2025. The convergence of the prophesied signs seems undeniable to those willing to look. The leader has returned. The division has reached critical levels. The natural world is in upheaval. Technology has advanced to dangerous levels. The persecution is intensifying. The tension is building towards some kind of breaking point. Father Pio said there would be a sign that would make it clear to everyone that we had entered the prophesied time, a sign so obvious that even skeptics would have to acknowledge something extraordinary was happening. He didn't specify what this sign would be, only that it would be unmistakable, that it would occur in connection with the leader, and that after this sign appeared, events would accelerate rapidly. Could we be about to witness that sign? Is it possible that something is coming in these final weeks of 2025 that will clarify everything? The prophecy suggests we should be watchful, not paranoid, but alert, not fearful, but prepared, not passive, but actively engaged in prayer and right action. The monk's final words on this subject are both sobering and hopeful. He said that the generation that witnesses these events is both cursed and blessed. Cursed because they must live through tribulation, blessed because they have the opportunity to participate in humanity's greatest transformation, that those who endure will see wonders, that on the other side of the darkness, a new dawn awaits. He spoke of a renewal, a time when the earth itself would be refreshed, when human society would be rebuilt on principles of truth and justice, when the power of evil would be broken for a season, when people would once again live in communities bound by love rather than isolated in fear, when technology would serve humanity rather than enslaving it, when the connection to the divine would be restored to its proper place. But to get there, we must pass through the fire. We must endure what Father Pio called the great chastisement, not as punishment from an angry God, but as correction from a loving Father who must allow consequences to teach his children what words alone cannot. The monk said that everything we thought was permanent would be shaken, that everything we relied on would be tested, that we would discover what was real and what was illusion. And in the midst of it all, the fate of the leader would serve as a barometer. His survival or fall would signal which path humanity was on. His actions would catalyze reactions that would force everyone to show their true colors. His very existence would become a dividing line between those who could see and those who were blind. So where do you stand? Can you feel the weight of this moment? Can you sense that we're balanced on a knife's edge? That the next few months could determine the trajectory of the next few centuries? Father Pio said many would sleepwalk through the most important time in human history, distracted by trivialities, while reality shifted beneath their feet. Don't be one of them. Pay attention, Question everything, trust your deepest intuitions, pray without ceasing, prepare both practically and spiritually, and watch what happens with Donald Trump, not as a political partisan, but as someone trying to read the signs of the times. Because according to Father Pio's prophecy, his fate and yours are more connected than you realize. The monk warned that there would be false prophets claiming to know the exact dates and details. He said to ignore them, that the important thing was not knowing the precise schedule, but being in a constant state of readiness, like the wise virgins in the Gospel, who kept their lamps filled with oil because they knew the bridegroom could come at any moment. This is that moment. This is the hour Father Pio saw from his cell in Italy over 60 years ago, when a stigmatist monk with the wounds of Christ bleeding on his hands looked across the ocean and across the decades and saw you, saw your time, saw your choices, and left you a warning and a promise. The warning: do not be deceived. Do not put your trust in human institutions or human leaders alone. Do not believe the comfortable lies. Do not surrender your conscience to the crowd. Do not abandon faith when it's tested. Do not give in to hatred or despair. The promise: if you endure, if you remain faithful, if you choose truth over convenience and love over fear, you will see the victory. You will witness the renewal. You will be part of the generation that turned the tide. Your suffering will have meaning. Your prayers will have power. Your choice to stand for what is right, even when it costs you everything, will echo through eternity. Father Pio of Predicted, the humble monk who bore the wounds of Christ, who saw into souls and across time, left this message for you, for this moment, for the end of 2025, and whatever comes next. The prophecy is unfolding. The signs are manifest. The choice is yours. And as you watch the news in the coming weeks, as you see events accelerate, as you witness the battle over Donald Trump intensify to levels that seem almost supernatural, remember that you were warned. Remember that a saint saw this coming. Remember that nothing happening is random or meaningless. Remember that you have a role to play in the greatest drama in human history. Will you play it? Will you be part of the remnant that holds the line? Will you be among those who keep the faith when everything seems lost? Will you choose the narrow path when the wide road looks so much easier? Father Pio already knows your answer. He saw it decades ago in his visions, but you have to live it now. You have to make it real through your choices, through your courage, through your refusal to bow to the spirit of this age. The prophecy is not just about Donald Trump. It's not just about America. It's not just about political power or natural disasters or technological advancement. It's about the human soul. It's about whether we, as a species, will choose light or darkness, truth or lies, God or the abyss. And the time to choose is now, not tomorrow, not when things get clearer. Now, today, this moment, as you hear these words, because Father Pio warned that the window of opportunity would be narrow, that there would come a point when choices were locked in and consequences became unavoidable. Are we at that point yet, or do we still have time? The prophecy suggests we're very, very close, that the events of the next few months will be decisive, that what happens to the leader will signal what happens to us all. So watch, pray, prepare, discern, and when the moment comes, and Father Pio promised it would come, be ready to act, be ready to stand, be ready to witness, be ready to endure, because the prophecy is already happening, and you are living through it right now.